ESBR box. We're back, myself and Paul Kelly. That means only one thing and one thing only. We're here in preview mode, and we are down previewing the super lightweight division. Obviously, we've got the fight between Dalton Smith here against Walid Ouizza. I'm not going to try and pronounce that again, but Dalton Smith's fighting in the division in Nottingham on the 25th. So that's where we're at. Paul, before we get into it, I just want to say, to everyone out there, like and subscribe to the channel. Obviously, all your boxing needs under one roof. Leave comments, etc. That will help inform the content. But Paul, as we're going into Dalton Smith in this, as mentioned, European super lightweight, WBC silver super lightweight title fight. We'll get into the predictions, I suppose. We'll get onto it shortly. But first of all, I want to sort of touch maybe on the sort of, I suppose, the British UK scene. Ask you a bit about Dalton Smith and where you rate him compared to some other fighters. I'm going to throw three fighters at you, Paul, that will be no strangers to anyone who's watched the channel or is a fan of boxing before. But Dalton Smith versus Adam Azim, Dalton Smith versus Joshua Taylor, and Dalton Smith versus Jack Catterall. Paul, those three fights, how does Dalton fare? And tell me what happens, please.
Oh, thanks for having me on, mate. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to seeing Dalton Smith. I've always been a big fan of him, so looking forward to seeing him back in action for the first time in the year. But to answer your question, mate, oh, oh, those four you've mentioned, right? Let's be honest, they're probably the four um in Britain that are the top four. But you've got Jack Catterall. You have to have him at the very top right now. You have Josh Taylor there for being undisputed or just behind him. Then you've got, the step down, maybe the levels and obviously experience as well. I don't think you can put Adam Azim and Dalton Smith in the same bracket as Josh Taylor, even if Josh Taylor is perhaps past his best. I don't think you can do that right now. But yeah, I think they're without a doubt probably the four best super lightweights in the world and in Britain, should I say. In terms of how he does, I've always been a big believer that Dalton Smith beats Adam Azim. I think he has the tools to do that. I think that in saying that, if that fight brews for longer and longer, I would still probably back Smith to win it. But I do think that that favors Adam Azim more because he's super young. He's only going to get better and better and better. But then I do think that high chance that Adam Azim won't be hanging about at super lightweight. You know what I mean? If he's still only 22, so he's still not even grown into a fully fledged man yet. So he might even outgrow Dalton Smith, perhaps, who's obviously into his mid to late 20s. Josh Taylor, it's a crossroads one in it.
Here we go,
Oh,
baby. Here we go.
dear. At this stage right now, oh, I don't know.
Is
I
it
mean, I
50?
can't
Is it a
hold.
50-50 for you, Paul?
It's,
Is it that
yeah,
close?
yeah,
Yeah.
I do actually see that as a 50-50. I think because Dalton Smith's on the cusp of fighting for world honors, maybe even by the end of 2025, but certainly the beginning of 2026, if everything goes to plan. But then, like, is Josh Taylor that one where you need to beat him to then announce yourself on that world level? But then equally, Josh Taylor's not going to want to become a gatekeeper. He's not that. He's too good for that. Um, the weight as well, obviously, super lightweight. Does that still take a lot out of Josh Taylor? In saying that, though, his only defeats are obviously to Catterall and Teofimo Lopez, who are up there as the best. So, oh no, I'm bottling it, mate. I'm bottling that one. And then Jack Catterall, I would favour at this stage, obviously, still to beat Dalton Smith. I think I think Jack Catterall is riding the crest of a wave right now. Um, in a few years' time, would have backed Dalton Smith to win that? Yeah, probably. But right here, right now, I would probably be backing Elgato to win that, mate. What about yourself?
Yeah, I've backed against Jack Catterall pretty much in every single fight that he's had recently. I've been eating humble pie ever since. So I would back Jack Catterall. Yeah, I think the start to beat Dalton Smith again. Like he's kind of high up in that division. Catterall really surprised me as he continues to surprise me with every single fight. I think the Josh Taylor one for me, I'm not going to shy away from it, but I actually reckon I actually might back Dalton Smith. I genuinely might. I mean, like you say, getting down to the weight. Don't get me wrong. Like Josh Taylor's obviously achieved fantastic things at the weight. He's been a fantastic champion, but he just looks a shade of the version of that sort of fighter now. So for me, I think a hungry Dalton Smith, I see it as a real 50-50 pull. I really do. I think Dalton Smith could beat him. Adam Azim, I totally agree with you. I think if they were to fight tomorrow, in a car park somewhere, I'd probably back Dalton Smith. But I think, like you said, I think the more, Dalton Smith's got 27, Adam Azim's obviously young. I think, to be honest with you, couple of years' time, I'd swing towards Adam Azim if he carries on this trajectory. But I think if they fought tomorrow, or in the next sort of couple of months, I probably would still back Dalton Smith. But let's stay on Dalton Smith a little bit and let's talk about the super lightweight division. Obviously, ranked quite high actually for WBC number two. If you look at the champions of down that division, I mean, we're going to have to mention Teo Lopez, even though who knows what's happening with that guy. Obviously you've got Cattle kicking around there. You come down, you've got obviously Richardson Hitchens, obviously as the IBF, but then Albert Puello, obviously for the WBC, is where he's ranked two as well. So I mean, do you think there's a chance that Dalton Smith will eventually become world champion. Do you see him as a world champion in waiting? You mentioned that the opportunity may come back into this year, early 2026. Were that opportunity to come, Paul, do you think Dalton Smith will take it and will he eventually become world champion?
Interesting, mate. I think whether or not it's this year or next year, 2027, whatever, I believe Dalton Smith will be a world champion. Yes, I do. I sit and say that with quite a lot of confidence, actually, as well. Who he beats to become champion, who he beats to win that belt, I'm not so sure. I think a similarity you can kind of draw is that Richardson Hitchens obviously didn't look well. He beat Jose Zepeda or every round. Dalton Smith then stopped Zepeda emphatically. So then you look at that and you think, oh, Smith did a better job than Hitchens did. But then you look at Hitchens' last performance against Liam Paro, where he was like, I thought Paro was going to win that. A lot of people did, and he was sensational against Liam Paro. Um, could he beat Richardson Hitchens? Maybe he could. It's hard to say. Like, I'm not sitting here and backing Dalton Smith to beat the likes of Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney. Is he still about there as well? These kind of guys. I'm not expecting him to do that right now. Years to come, the next couple of years, I think it is go time for Dalton Smith. And yes, I don't know who he'll beat. I don't know what belt it will be, but I believe Dalton Smith becomes world champion before his career, and for sure. What about you?
Yeah, you know what? I actually agree with you. I think it's very hard to map out who he's necessarily going to beat and to sort of sit there and go, yeah, I back him as favourite. Obviously, we're talking like European WCC silver at the moment. So we're not talking about that sort of world level yet at the moment. But I do think, I actually agree with you. I think he has got all the attributes and all the tools. I do kind of gut sort of intuition to believe that he will one day become world champion. I'm not necessarily thinking he'll rule the division by any stretch, or that he'll be a long-term serving world champion. But I do think he'll pick up a world title. I do definitely believe that. So definitely got all the tools for it. But Paul, we are here. We're focusing obviously on this fight. Obviously, Dalton Smith, as we mentioned, our European fight, WBC silver fight against Walid. I'm not going to pronounce his surname, but he's a guy who's a French boxer. Obviously we've seen on this outlet before. I remember Callum Smith being one of the fighters who beat, I think France's number 2 light heavyweight, and everyone was going crazy. So would this victory here about Dalton Smith against a sort of French fighter be a marquee victory or not, Paul? I mean, how do you see this fight playing out? Does Dalton Smith cruise through this? Does he sort of take his time? There's obviously the guys, 8 KOs in 19, has lost twice before, so doesn't necessarily carry brute power. Obviously Smith, 12 KOs in 16. Do you think Smith stops him? Who wins this, Paul, and how?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think I'm backing Dalton Smith to win. Big puncher, big enough puncher, Dalton Smith. I think this guy hasn't been stopped either. So could maybe prove a bit of a puzzle for Dalton Smith to work out. I think that if the stoppage does come, it'll be later in the fight. I'm not backing Dalton Smith to run through. Ouizza. I think I'm trying
You're a
not to
brave
butcher his
man.
name either, but I think Smith wins. I would, I'll go late stoppage, maybe around 9, 10. But it wouldn't surprise me if it went the distance, mate. But yeah, Dalton Smith to win.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Paul. I think Dalton Smith for me wins. Actually think Dalton Smith will hand him his first stoppage. I really do. I think somewhere sort of 8 plus. I suppose, like you say, he's been out of the ring for a little while, so it'd be nice to maybe get some ring rust out, get some rounds under. But I think he's got too much quality for him to be perfectly honest with you. And I think there's going to be a stoppage victory late in the fight. But guys, let us know in the comments what you think, whether you agree with this, disagree with this. I suppose also those fights, the Dalton Smith fantasy fights against AZIM, Taylor, and CATTERALL, what you think to those as well, and whether he become world champion. Like and subscribe, engage with the content. Let us know whether you agree or disagree with us. Paul, as always, thank you very much for joining. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching.
Cheers, mate. All the best.